Let me ask you something. Avatar: The Last Airbender came out in 2005. That's over 20 years ago. And most of us watching this aren't even old enough to really understand everything that was doing at the time. And yet, here we are. Still talking about it, still rewatching it, still recommending it to people who have never seen it like it's the most important thing we will ever tell them. That doesn't happen with most shows. That barely happens with any show. Most of the stuff that came out in 2005 and was completely huge has been either forgotten about or just talked about with that big, large nostalgia goggles that we do with a lot of nostalgic shows. And the few things that people do remember from that era usually haven't held up all that well. But Atla hits different every single time. So, hey everyone, and welcome to RoviiRetro, your home for everything animation, from the classic you remember to the ones that deserve a lot more love. I'm Rovi, and let's get into today's video. We're going to be breaking down exactly why Avatar: The Last Airbender is still one of the most popular animated shows on the planet 2 decades later. And I'm going to make the case why this isn't just nostalgia. This isn't just people clinging on to their childhood. And this show was genuinely built so it could last. And it will always be that way. Because over 20 years after it was made, we have gotten Legends of Korra, which people can debate whether they enjoy it or not. We've gotten the new movie, which even though it was leaked, we still have the actual thing coming out later in the year. And we know we are getting many and many more projects from the studio, whether it's Seven Havens or a lot of the other things that we know are going to be coming up later in their lifespan. Let's start off with the most obvious thing, though, the characters. Because if we're going to talk about why this franchise has lasted so long, where so many others that tried just doing spin-offs and doing all of these other things fail in every single way, we have to talk about the thing that is the most important, the characters in the world that they built. Because this is where a lot of shows get it wrong. They give you a protagonist who is either perfect from day one, or they give you a character who suffers too much and that stops it from feeling meaningful in the same way that it possibly could. And Atla does neither one of those tropes. Aang is a 12-year-old who woke up to find out that everything he loved is dead, his entire culture wiped out, and his response isn't rage. It isn't some dramatic power up moment that just basically gives him untold powers for the rest of the show. Yes, he is angry. Yes, he is rageful, but automatically it goes into grief. It's avoidance. It's a kid who just doesn't want to be the Avatar because being the Avatar is genuinely terrifying. And that is relatable in a way that most protagonists just really aren't. And then when you look at Zuko, which probably would be my favorite character from the original show, because he might have the greatest character arc in history of animation, and I will die on that hill. He starts off as a villain, a banished prince chasing the Avatar because that's what his abusive father told him to do to honor and basically get his honor back. And then throughout 3 seasons, you see him slowly realize that everything that he was chasing was built on a lie. That honor that he wanted was never going to come from his father. It had to be built within himself and actually grown and molded into a person that could be better for him. The reason that arc works so well is because it is never rushed. The writers let Zuko be wrong. They let him make a bad choice when he's had the chance to make the right one. Remember the Crystal Catacombs? He chose Azula. He chose his father. And then he shows up, and the show doesn't just skip all over that. They make him live with it. That's real writing. That's the kind of character that works and stays with people for over 20 years. And this isn't just with Aang and Zuko. Katara literally carries trauma and real anger. Sokka grows from the comic relief into somebody that is genuinely essential to every mission. Toph is dealing with family expectations and independence, and even some of the side characters, Iroh, Suki, Jet, Azula, they all feel like they exist outside of whatever scene they were trying to have and just be in at that exact moment of time. This is a really well written cast and a really well written world that actually can be able to draw you in. Because when your entire cast feels like real people, you don't stop caring about them. That is why people still watch the show in 2026. And that is why so many people were excited for this new movie. this movie that would actively see what these characters would be doing all the way up into their adulthoods. And yes, the movie did get leaked, but even then, we still have to actively respect the creators that actively made the thing and watch it when it actively does it come out so we know and we can show them that we do want this project. We do want more of this work. Because in all honesty, even with all of the work that we've gotten, the main reason that Avatar: The Last Airbender is main so far, besides the characters, is the themes that grow with you. Because here's the thing that most people don't actively think about enough. When you watch it at 8 years old and you love the adventure story, you can actively just love it just like that. You understand the base bare bones of the story and you can still enjoy it. When you watch it at 16 and suddenly notice all the stuff about trauma and identity, you can watch it later on and you can watch it 25 and realize it's a show about war, imperialism, and what it's like to rebuild after a genocide. And it works on every single one of those levels simultaneously. This is why you could watch the show with your son, yourself, and literally your own parents, and all of you can understand the show at a different, just thematic level, and all still enjoy it because you're basically getting three stories all at once that gender and like actually cater to active whatever age you are, what male, female, you all get the exact same experience, but in a different way. That's not an accident. The writers, Michael DiMartino and Brian, actively were trying to make a kids show that didn't insult kids with it. Like they trusted their audience. Think about a show that's actually act. Think about what the show is actively under its surface. The Fire Nation didn't just conquer the world; they erased cultures. They rewrote history. They taught their own children what they were doing was righteous, because we all know the victors write the spoils. The victors basically make whatever story that they make and whatever story that they want to make everything that they've done seem righteous. And the show doesn't flinch away from that. This here is an episode where Aang and Zuko go to the Fire Nation school, and the propaganda there is just basically being taught that it is basically very much horrifying to anyone else that actually knows the real history, because this is just where the kind of actual information is coming from. It is presented through the lens of two kids processing it, so it never feels really preachy or it never feels really real. When you look at it in the struggling kid angle, you could actively understand how hard it is to see all of these things kind of be taken into context because we know how Aang's life has been. You look at Aang's struggle with killing. His airbending brought him up and taught him that all life is sacred, but the world is demanding that he kill the Fire Lord at the end of the war. The show takes that conflict very seriously. It doesn't just have him say, I'll find a way in the last second and just cheap it out. It steps back for a sec and actually makes him actively contemplate should he do it or should he not do it. And he does contemplate doing it until he finds a better way. There is no, oh, I can't kill. That's just killing is wrong. I can never do that. So let me just find every other way to do it and just cause more problems later on for every single person in my group. And he knows that that's just going to cause a lot more irritation, a lot more annoyance. Those are adult themes. That's the kind of moral complexity and prestige with the television shows that usually struggle with. So we can actually enjoy it even more. And because those themes are so layered and deep, every time you rewatch it as an older and older person, you find something new. The show literally grows with you, and that's rare, and that's something that makes it timeless. And the themes aren't the only thing that is airtight about this world, because the world building in the world itself is absolutely beautiful. Because the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender is generally one of the best constructed fictional settings that I've ever seen for nations that are not just for random factions. Each one with deeply rooted real world cultures and philosophies. The water tribes pulling from the Inuit cultures, the Earth Kingdom drawing from Chinese dynasty history, the Fire Nation clearly having that Imperial Japan, and the air nomads basically built off that Buddhist philosophy. with like why the genocide of people built around the piece of like, non-attachment hits so hard because you actually have the thing of they were never causing any problem to anybody else. They were just doing their own stuff, trying to help everybody else. And they caused a threat because air nomads are genuinely the most frightening people if they weren't nomads and they weren't peacekeepers. That entire kind of thing, it really does hit hard. The bending system is also very genius because it's basically internally consistent. Each bending style isn't just visually distinct. It's philosophically distinct also. Earthbending is about being rooted, waiting, redirecting, and reacting. Water bending is about flow and adaptation. Firebending is driven by breath and inner fire, which is why Sun Warriors scene recontextualizes everything that we thought about, like we thought we knew about the Fire Nation. And airbending is about freedom, evasion rather than power, which is basically telling you everything that you need to know about all of these characters' personalities at the like just fundamental core because that bending is also a basic taking on an aspect and part of who they are as a character. This matters when the world has so many just, internal logic and all of these other things because it doesn't feel like something that's made up. It really actively just helps you understand a lot about where everything is kind of coming from. All of these bending styles and all of the way that the world works basically works together to kind of give you a better view onto how this world came to be. And when we actually go into Legend of Korra and get a lot more of the background and even the history from Juan, the seeing how the world grows after Aang's gone, and basically just seeing how the world's evolving and how it started, we can understand how this world came to be and actually feel like it makes a lot of logical sense. People don't watch Avatar: The Last Airbender just for the plot. They watch it to spend time in that world, to see the Ember Island trope again, and basically sit on Iroh's like sitting in an Iroh's tea shop, watch the gang set up the camp, and just exist with each other for a minute before the next crisis hits. That's why, like, me and my friends have tried to do an Avatar Dungeons and Dragon kind of thing because the world just actively makes sense. You can be whatever you want, and you can just easily do it without having to be too worried about everything because the world makes sense no matter what you do. But if we're being honest, the biggest diversion from why this show has lasted 20 years in the making and why a lot of other shows just don't really last the test of time, it's because this show actually respected its audience from day one. Because this is the one thing that separates ATLA from a lot of other shows and a lot of other media in general. And that's the reason that I genuinely believe this show will be talked about for another 20 years, especially with all the new content that's going to be coming out. Avatar: The Last Airbender never once talked down to its audience. Not once. Think about what a lot of animated shows do. They reset. Every episode, the character go through something, learn a lesson, and then by the next episode, everything's back to normal. No consequences, no continuity, no growth. The biggest example that I could use from this is quite literally just Teen Titans Go. It's a show that's been on for a little while, if we're going to be honest. And for the most part, every single episode, there's only singular episode. There's no timeline. And even if there is, for the most part, every character just basically reverting to where they were at the beginning of the episode and just kind of never actively going through an actual good character arc. Avatar: The Last Airbender is basically the exact opposite. Everything matters. Every episode is building towards something. When the character makes a choice in book one, you feel it in book three. When someone gets hurt, they stay hurt for a while. When someone grows, they actually grow. They don't snap out of it and snap back into who they were because the plot needed them to. And this isn't just about some story structure. It's an emotional honesty that I really truly love. Because for the most part, as I said, most shows that you can think of that are animated usually go with that, okay, boom, especially like back in this like this time back in the late mid 2000s, most of the shows were easily just going one episode, just continue on to the next episode. Nothing really changes besides maybe an overarching storyline that we might be using. For the most part, they probably weren't. But this actually had story structure. It actually had a thing that you could actually feel and grow with the entire time. This show doesn't tell you how to feel. It shows you something real and then lets you feel it. the episode where Zuko and Iroh are sick and delirious in the wilderness, and there's just basically no dramatic speech, no lesson wrapped in a bow, just two people at their lowest where you sit with them. And that Tales of Bossing Sai episode where you see basically each character gets a quiet moment to just exist. The Iroh segments where we see how his life was with entire history of who he was as the Western Dragon, who he was like who the Dragon of the West, who he was with his son dying and everything else, like the leaves from a vine, all of these other things basically show you the kind of character that they were, and then they let you respect every aspect of it, and they actively don't just try to cash grab everything back to back and just spin off, spin off, spin off, spin off, spin off. Yeah, they're doing it kind of now, but they're not rushing it and just actively being like, okay, let's just grab some more money. Let's make a game. Let's just add all these extra characters and just basically do all of these other things. They're actually trying to make a studio that's actively working very well. Because even when you think about, oh, yeah, we have the live action Netflix show. The writers started working on it, but once they noticed that Netflix wasn't going the direction that they wanted to go with it in the full aspect of the show, they chose to leave and let Netflix do what they wanted because they understood that, hey, we created this for the fans. We created this so we could actively be able to talk to you guys and give you something that actively was enjoyable. If they don't want to cooperate and give it exactly what we wanted to envision with it, we don't have to be here. And then they created their own studio so they could be able to give the fans what they want in the best way possible, in the way that they know the fans deserve, which is why we love this universe. So, exactly why we kind of just let the respect stay there and let them show the something true and then don't forget it. This isn't about popularity. This isn't about, oh, they did it once so we can trust them to do again. This is just legacy and the trust that has been built over all of this time. So yeah, Avatar The Last Airbender is going to be popular for at least another 20 years, and I fully believe that because in the last 20 years, in the content that we have gotten, even though it hasn't been the extreme amount that we could have potentially gone, like, Marvel or DC Cinematic Universe or whatever, we have got enough to show them that they really care about us and how we perceive the story. And as I've already said, while people have their opinions on Legend of Korra, whether they like it or hate it, or they like Korra as a character, the debates on Avatar have never stopped, whether it's Korra versus Aang, whether it's anything else like that. So we can at least understand that this Sito and this way that they're going to be continuing on and just kind of giving us new content is going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm, for one, am here for it. The characters in this universe feel real. The themes grow with you, and the world really never stops wanting to return and letting us actually come back to it. So, we really are excited to see what this show and what this universe has in store for us. Because most shows do actively just chase what's trending, while Avatar The Last Airbender just told the best possible version of its story, and the truth just basically lets itself show. So 20 years from now, some kid's gonna be discovering the show for the first time, and I fully feel that they're going to be experiencing the exact same sensation that we felt when we first started watching it back on Nickelodeon, just every day that we saw it. Because some stories aren't products of their time, they're just good, full stop, and timeless for anybody else to watch it, no matter when they choose to come then eventually into it. So yeah, that's what I got for today. If you think Avatar: The Last Airbender deserve every bit of its love, or you think I'm just wrong about any of this, let me know down in the comment section below. I read everything, and I will absolutely get back down to every comment that I see. And if you're new here, we're going to be just talking about a lot of other specific things. This is channel quite literally just going to be for me ranting about anything from the mid 2000s, whether it's Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, Cubo, PBS Kids, really whatever, whether it might be animated, might not be, depending on my mood. But I'll see you guys in the next video. If you guys did enjoy this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.